The performance exchange is a step in the right direction towards getting all of the theaters, the Trinities, the GAMs, the big professional companies, the Second Stories, as well as the small independent five, people who graduated college together, got together over coffee one day and said, we have a vision, we want to do these plays, nobody's doing these plays. So that's a good thing.
So it almost seems like you're trying to eliminate competition in the state.
Correct, and it's because there is competition, and it started because people don't go see each other's shows, specifically the producing staffs. And to their defense, when you're a Kurt Columbus at Trinity or an Ed Shea at Second Story, and you're so busy running a theater and keeping it alive, the last thing you can think about is what are your friends' theaters doing, what they're doing as well.
Okay.
But that's why somebody like the Performance Exchange fills a niche to say, well, we'll worry about it. Let's get everybody together and let's have a social function where everybody wears a name tag and says, I'm a director looking for work, or I'm a company looking for a master electrician, or I'm looking for a soprano, or, these things go out in bits and pieces over social networking, but there's no one forum for people to find that and get that information.
Okay.
So this is a step in that direction. Performance Exchange is having a statewide general audition, which is huge. That is a massive step in the right direction. And that is Trinity, and it's GAM, and it's Epic, and it's Academy Players, who has been around for almost 60 years at this point, struggling as a community theater, and they're all doing great work that should be seen. So on June 1st from 10 to 6, anybody who wants to be on stage and has always said, well, how do I know about auditions? Well, read Motif and some of the other fine publications that are out there and on Facebook, but this is a place where every theater can see you at once and see what's right, and that's why this is such a major step.
Do you think these companies are willing to work together that way? Do you think these big wigs in Providence are willing to go out and say, watch these smaller shows?
Well, I think so. I mean, I hope so. As I said, a lot of these folks are very busy. Running Trinity is a much bigger enterprise than running Academy Players or running Mixed Magic or Epic, but the challenges are the same. The creative challenges are the same, and the problems are the same. And the union theaters will hire from out of state, or the pool of professional actors within the state, but that is maybe 10-15%, and that I'm being generous when I say that, of the need for theater professionals. And I say theater professionals, I don't just mean performers, because there's a lot of people who want to act, but there's lighting designers, sound designers, costume designers, stage managers, carpenters, you name it. Finding people who not only want to do that and can do that, but how do they get the experience in the first place? Well, something like a collaborative entity like the Performance Exchange gives these people a common pool of resources and say, hey, I've always wanted to do costume design. Where can I get a break? Who's looking for a costume designer? That's one-stop shopping. And I think this will streamline things, and this will help these artists get a chance to find places, and it'll only up the quality. Up the quality means that the audiences will not have to worry about taking the chance on whatever it is. We've hit a critical mass in Rhode Island with theater companies that something has to give, and either they need to start merging and forming these alliances in order to survive, which is what the Rhode Island Theater Alliance, RHEDA, is. It's these three companies saying, hey, we'll share each other's spaces. I'm directing a show for Epic right now, and I needed a rehearsal space because the theater was being used, and I went down to Contemporary Theater, one of the partners in the alliance, and used the space down there for rehearsals for a while, and that's a perfect example. Whereas if that didn't exist, we would have been rehearsing in the street or somebody's living room, because who else would you go to?
Right.
And everybody said, well, don't go see other shows. Stay loyal to this theater. There's an attempt now to break that down.
Is there a rivalry in Rhode Island, do you think, between all the local companies?
Well, yeah, in a way. Whether it's real or perceived, the larger theaters, the Second Story, GAM, and Trinity, yeah, they're competing for audiences on a level. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're holding these general auditions and the three of those theaters are there is a big step towards saying, hey, we can work together here. The fact of the matter is that in the state you can see a different play every night of the week. It's if you really look at it, especially in peak seasons, on the weekends you might have 10 to 13 choices of plays, which is mind-boggling. And that's when most people go to the theater and they go, I can't make sense of all of this, I'm going to go to something I've heard of. Well, how do you change the equation? You get those other things out there. You've got somebody like Lenny Schwartz, Daydream Theater, writes all his own scripts, doesn't have to worry about royalties. He always fills seats, because it's not just because all of his friends and his family and the actor's family show up, it's because he's snowballing on the success of, look, you're going to see something really interesting, even if it's nothing you've ever heard of, and maybe it's brand new and sometimes it's hit or miss, but it's going to be interesting, and you've definitely never seen it before. So he's got his own niche there, and there's other theaters doing new work, and I'll keep saying Perishable was always championing new scripts. And there's other companies out there that are trying to, and they're passionate about new plays and not doing the same reinterpretation of Mousetrap that's been done a million times. So, which is also fine. People want to see Agatha Christie. People want to see Neil Simon. People want to see those shows. But there are just as many people, especially younger audiences, who want to be challenged. They want to see something different. Yes, people are going to decide on a Friday night, Saturday night, or any night, am I going to go see a movie? Am I going to go see a play? Am I going to go to a museum? Am I going to see a live band? How do you get people to decide theater over, and should they? I mean, it's a valid question. You know, some people are simply not going to like theater. Some people are going to prefer seeing a live performance over a film anytime. And I always would rather see a play, simply because anything can happen. It's live performance. And, you know, there's that energy, just like live music, that you can't capture in a film. And as an artist, as a performer, having an audience in front of you, get that instant feedback. It goes both ways. But how you have to educate the public that exists, and that thrill exists, and that's why you go. Where I think most people think that theater is something that they got dragged to in English class, they saw some old chestnut that they could care less about, and that's their impression of theater. Their parents didn't go to the theater, their grandparents might have, so it's something that old people do. Maybe on Sundays that's true. It's education, and it's the media, and in the media is almost the antithesis of live theater, even though they might talk about it. But when you see a television show talking about theater, it's like, what are you trying to tell me? I'm watching TV and you're telling me to go to a play. So how do you have to create a synergy. There has to be some way where film and theater and music and the other performance arts and creative arts work together and tell their audiences. So maybe if you go to a local film festival, maybe a locally produced Rhode Island film has advertisements for theater in it. When's the last time you saw that? And who can afford it except Trinity and the GAM? You see commercials on TV, so there's a synergy there. Mm-hmm. But why can't a local film volunteer some of that space and say, hey, there's a theater company out here that does this? And why can't, in the program of the next play you go to, why can't it advertise a locally produced film? So it goes both ways. And so this spirit of collaboration in the arts, and it's a competition for the audience's dollar, but it doesn't have to be. Instead of saying, go see theater, go see film, go see this, why not? It's all here. And I think that, at Motif, we're embracing all of it, saying, look what's out there. So while we're promoting that it's all out there, I think that the different outlets and the different performance entities that are out there in every media have to start acknowledging each other and helping each other. So.
Do you think the theaters see themselves in competition with music and film?
No, I've never gotten a sense that theater artists are competing for the movie dollar. I mean, everybody laments the fact that more people want to stay home and watch TV, and certainly if you've been in the audience at a play, if that education goes to how to be a theater audience, because there's a responsibility as an audience member, right, where you can't DVR the play, and if you start talking to your friend out loud in the middle of a show, you can't go back and see what you just missed, and you're annoying everybody around you. So there's that problem as well, that modern theater audiences are a little, victim of the new media. But no, within theater specifically, the problem has been they're competing with each other. And they're saying, come see our shows, don't see their shows. And that's ending, and that's changing, because that's not the way it should be. There's too much good work going on, and there are too many good artists, you know, actors, directors, producers, on the production and technical side of it, that there's enough for everybody, but they have to make some wise choices, and, you know, it's treading new ground. And some people are going to make mistakes and find out what works and what doesn't, and the Performance Exchange, Rhode Island Performance Exchange, is trying to say, what worked for you? What was a success? Let's all learn from that, rather than keep those secrets in-house and go, well, I know how to get subscribers, or I know how to build a season, or I know what works. Let those, you know, let those lessons out and let everybody learn from them. It is not an either-or situation. There's enough for everybody. Go to Motif and find out what's out there. And I'd say, you know, I would challenge audiences to challenge themselves, see something that they didn't think they'd see. You know, there may be theaters right in your own neighborhood that you didn't even know existed, and there probably is. And that goes from north, south, on the island and beyond. They're out there. So see everything. Nothing's bad. It's just a matter of what's your taste. Everybody's a member of the Performance Exchange. If you do performance in the state, you are a member of RIPE. And it is not...
Whether you know it or not.
Whether you know it or not, exactly. And it's not, as I said, it's a collective. It's a group of like-minded artists saying, let's share resources, let's share ideas, let's share successes and failures, and let's make the entire state better. That's what the Performance Exchange is about, and these new alliances are about. And it's a great thing. And who wins is not only the artists, but the audiences win, because they're going to see better shows and they're going to know about them. There have been other examples of this in other states, but this was really a need-driven entity, because it got to a point a couple of years ago that, as I said, these new companies started popping up to such an extent, and they were competing for space, they were competing for actors, they were competing for scripts. It just became untenable. I mean, they were all going to fail if that kept up. Somebody wanted to change the conversation, so there were, you know, Rebecca Noon is one of the individuals who said, stop, let's get together and actually, instead of complaining about these things in our own coffee shops and living rooms, let's actually call a monthly meeting, get everybody together, form your own agenda, and talk about what's bothering you, what's happening out there. Let's discuss these things like adults and not be competing anymore, and not talk about each other anymore. Let's talk with each other. So that's where that grew out of. It grew out of necessity, and it grew out of a spirit of camaraderie, because as much as this competition was taking place, all of these people know each other and work together, and it just doesn't have to be that way. So it just took somebody to say, let's talk about the elephant in the room, and let's solve these problems.
So now RIPE is having their big auditions on June 1st. Do you know of any other type of board meeting or networking event that is coming up?
As far as the exchange?
Yes.
They have a monthly meeting, and they just had one very recently, yesterday maybe. If you go to the Rhode Island Performance Exchange website or on their Facebook group, all the information is there. The monthly meeting is for any artist in the state who wants to show up and talk about their ideas, their problems, and it's you know, to build that momentum. So there's no exclusions. It's for anybody. It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Definitely.